you have a lot of cancel culture where people disagree with what you have to say, so they just sort of try to tune you out. Uh, there seems to be a lack of civil discourse, and politics comes to mind, but it goes beyond politics too, where people just don't want to talk and debate or basically respect other people's opinions, you know? And I think that is why companies will value employees who know how to be empathetic, how to talk to people, how to carry on a conversation, how to agree and disagree without being disagreeable.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm your host, Vanessa Rose, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Jim Stroud is the VP of Marketing at Proactive Talent. Over the past decade, Jim has built an expertise in sourcing and recruiting strategy, public speaking, lead generation, video production, podcasting, online research, competitive intelligence, online community management, and more. He has consulted for companies such as Microsoft, Google, MCI, Siemens, Bernard Hertz Group, and a host of startup companies. We're happy to have him on our interview series today. Welcome, Jim. We're thrilled to have you.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for the intro. I sound important.
So, moving on to our first question, Jim. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey and what has brought you to Proactive Talent?
Sure. Although it's hard for me to believe, I've been involved in recruiting and sourcing for, 2 decades now. Hopefully I don't look that, but been involved in it for 2 decades. And I think part of the reason for my success in the industry is my constant experimentation with different tactics and strategies. Long before it was in vogue, I was using video to attract talent, also using podcasts way back when, also doing various talent attraction strategies way back when for Microsoft and Google. Some things you can still see online now, but experimenting quite a bit. Whenever there was a new social network like Twitter or further back than that, MySpace, using that, learning the latest social media trends and leveraging those for recruiting. So that has really helped me to be successful in recruiting over the years.
Yeah, two decades is a really long time. I'm sure you're.
Yeah, really. I started when I was 18. No, I'm joking.
All right. So, being an expert in sourcing and recruiting, what would be your advice, to create a good pipeline of talent?
Well, to create a good pipeline of talent, I always suggest to recruiters to focus on companies and pre-qualified talent as much as possible. And this is what I mean by that. If I am recruiting for Google, for example, and I know that I compete for talent with Facebook, then I will look at the job descriptions on Facebook to see how closely they align to the job description that I'm trying to fill. And then I would know that, okay, if I'm looking to fill a software engineer at for my employer, the qualifications that we require are very similar to a software developer role at Facebook. So then I would present to my hiring manager, these are the basic requirements that a software developer needs over at Facebook. If we're going to if I recruit someone from there with this particular job title, knowing that these are the skill sets they tend to have, will you approve them to be interviewed or at least look at them? They'll say yes. That frees up so much time for me. So now I know that if I just target Facebook and I can find somebody with that particular job title, knowing that the hiring manager has already pre-qualified the talent, then I know that presenting candidates with this job title from this company will get approved. Saves me so much time. So I tell people, recruiters, to focus on finding out which jobs at which companies best align with what you're currently recruiting for, and then focus on finding people with those job titles in those companies. And also the good thing about that is that this is repeatable. So if you get so many hiring managers buying into the fact that software engineers from company A, B, or C tend to have the skill sets that we want, all right, then I'm going to focus on hiring people out of, or recruiting people out of A, B, and C, because I know it'll save me time and that the managers will recruit them right away. So that's generally what I try to suggest to recruiters. Saves a lot of time, gets right to the chase, reduces time to fill.
So it's a very focused process.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think we can tackle the problem of subconscious bias in recruitment?
Subconscious bias. Well, I like what Unilever has done. They've done this thing, and not only Unilever, Jet, Goldman Sachs, Walmart. They've done this in some variation, where they will use online assessment tools, which are like online games. So let me tell you what Unilever did specifically, because I happen to know this. So they were looking to hire a lot of students out of college. So what they did was they advertised they advertise opportunities to work for the company. But when you click the link from a Facebook ad, instead of going to an actual job description, you would go to an online game. So you'd be invited to play one of, I think, 6 different online games. And as you play these games, what these games are doing are qualifying you for the role. They're trying to see if you have a certain skill sets that's needed for this role. Trying to see if you're good at math, for example, the role calls for that. Trying to see if you're patient, trying to see if you think things through. All these different games you play, they're short games. I think altogether it probably takes 15 minutes to play them all, but they're measuring and tracking your skill set. Then what Unilever did was they looked at who scored the highest in these games, and they invited people who scored the highest to take an online interview. But that was automated as well. They sent them a link to HireVue, which is the online video interviewing platform. And the candidates did a video interview through the system, but they also took a test there as well, so further testing. So depending on how well they tested on the preliminary games and then how they tested in the HireVue session, would the hiring manager, okay, let me see who are the best scorers. At this point, hiring manager hadn't seen them, doesn't know who they are or anything. So just show me the people who, present to me the people who have the highest scores. Then the hiring manager makes a decision based on these people, and then says, okay, out of these people who have scored the highest, I like what these 3 people have to say. Come over, if you would, let me schedule you for an in-person interview. And if they like them in an in-person interview at that stage, then they will hire them. Unilever did this process to hire, I think around 500 students in 2018, I think it was 2018, early 2019, somewhere in there. I thought it was really good because it really moved a lot of barriers away. I mean, you don't know who I am. You don't have my resume. You can't make any assumptions whatsoever. I take a test, depending on how well I score in that test, which is based on certain skills, then I'm in consideration for a role. I think that's really the best way. I've also seen variations of the theme. I read how there was a certain symphony, I think maybe it was in London, I'm not sure, but they did a lot of blind interviewing where they would just basically have a curtain and have people play behind a curtain, play the violin behind a curtain. And they did that because there were not a lot of women playing first position in the orchestra that they were recruiting for. So they say, you know what? Let's just put a curtain up, let people play, and then based on how they're playing, I don't know who they are. I'm just going by their skills because I can hear it. And then they would hire people, and they increase diversity and women in the orchestra from that method. So I think a lot of skills and online testing is really the way to go. I've also seen companies pursue unbiased interviewing. This is one company called Tengai, Tengai, which I think is interesting. I haven't seen it firsthand, but I've known people who have interfaced with it. And it's basically a robot head. And this robot head will ask you questions about your background, your skills, that kind of thing. And it will make an assessment on whether or not you're qualified just based on certain questions. And because it's a robot, supposedly it's totally unbiased. The jury's still out for me. on that, because I think even if you use a robot head, a human being had to program it. So there's probably some bias in there somewhere. But the theory is that if it's a robot, it can't discriminate against you. So I think it's interesting. I'm not totally convinced, but it is something that I've heard about.
These are such interesting approaches of reducing bias. Yeah, because
Mm,
in the end, it all comes down to how talented the person is.
yeah, yeah, truly, truly, truly.
Let's spoke about gamification and robots. So, how do you see the future of recruiting? How do you see technology contributing to recruiting? What role do you think technology should be serve here?
Yeah, I see. Curiously enough, I see more salespeople entering into recruiting because salespeople have the interpersonal skills that's needed. When we get to a point where I need X number of candidates and I can just press a button and this tool will find candidates for me automatically and bring them to my email. And so I think it'll be, with the different tools available, it'll be easier and easier and easier over time to find people. But the difficulty that won't change is talking to a person, convincing them to leave a position that they probably are comfortable in to take a chance to work for your client. That takes a lot of salesmanship. I think also it's going to take people who are very empathetic, have strong interpersonal skills, because not only do they need to contact the candidate and talk to them and convince them to work for their client, they also have to manage the relationship with the hiring manager and get a good idea of what the hiring manager, what they say they want, and then gauge it by what they really want. Because a lot of times that's two different things. And then you have to manage the relationship with the hiring manager. You got to manage the relationship with the candidate. You have to negotiate the salary in a lot of cases. You want to make sure that at least in the beginning stages of a new job that they're happy so that you can retain that individual over time. All of that takes interpersonal skills. And I think that no matter how much technology we have, that is really the core skill that people are going to need in our industry. If you were to do a search on Indeed.com on the search term, on the term interpersonal, you'll see that word used on jobs paying 30,000 to 100,000 plus across the board. Being interpersonal, having that kind of skill set is crucial. Is only going to become more and more crucial in the future. So I can easily imagine companies doing more things like having, this is something we did when I was at Randstad, volunteer service, because someone may think that they have people skills until they are volunteering in a soup kitchen or helping the homeless and they realize how patient or impatient they are. And although that is a way of giving back to the community, it really is a way of developing skill sets. I see companies really pushing more volunteerism with their employees. I also see recruiters and maybe hiring managers beginning to require that when they see people for different opportunities, they want to see on their resumes where they have volunteered. Are they involved in a outreach ministry? Are they involved in some sort of charity? Something that shows that they're still able to connect with people. You know, so I think we're going to see more of that, and I think that's going to become as valuable as it is. I think it's going to become even more and more valuable because in these days and times, you have a lot of cancel culture where people disagree with what you have to say, so they just sort of try to tune you out. There seems to be a lack of civil discourse, and politics comes to mind, but it goes beyond politics too, where people just don't want to talk and debate or basically respect other people's opinions. And I think that is why companies will value employees who know how to be empathetic, how to talk to people, how to carry on a conversation, how to agree and disagree without being disagreeable. You know, I think that's become more and more valuable, especially in light of a lot of political events. Um, so yeah, hopefully I answered the question. I feel like I rambled that, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That was great, Jim. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you. And
Thank you. Thank you.